The sound of fabric ripping echoed down the hallway like a gunshot. It wasn't just a tear, it was a violation. In the middle of the corridor at Fairview High, surrounded by hundreds of stunned students, stood Ariel Brooks. Her white sundress hung in tatters torn from shoulder to waist, exposing her sports bra and her dignity to a sea of phone cameras. But Ariel didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She looked cold, eyes sharp and still like ice just before it cracks. Across from her stood Logan Barrett, the school's golden boy quarterback, holding a shred of her dress in his smug hand like a trophy. "Not so special now, huh?" he sneered, basking in the gasps and laughter of the crowd. But what happened next made the hallway fall into silence. Ariel's stance shifted ever so slightly. Her shoulders squared, her feet realigned. Her hands lifted into a calm, deliberate pose only a trained eye would recognize. From a distance, Coach Ramirez, standing at the doorway to his office, inhaled sharply and whispered, "Oh no, she's trained." Nobody knew Ariel had grown up under the watchful eye of her father, a former Marine and a master of martial arts. Nobody knew about the black belt folded neatly inside her closet back home. And nobody, not even Logan, realized they had just picked a fight with the wrong girl. Fairview High was about to learn that Ariel Brooks wasn't just the new girl. She was a storm waiting to be unleashed. Just 3 weeks earlier, Ariel Brooks was a nobody, a quiet transfer student from Oakland, California. She arrived at Fairview High with 2 duffel bags, a worn-out Honda Civic, and a mother who was trying too hard to hold it all together. They had left everything behind after the accident, the house, the neighborhood, the memories. Her father had been killed by a drunk driver, and with him, so had their sense of home. Now they were in Dallas, trying to start over. "This is our fresh start, baby," her mother had said that first night, eyes tired but determined. Ariel didn't believe her. She had unpacked only the essentials. The only item she placed carefully on her shelf was her father's black belt, folded with reverence. His photo leaned against it. "I won't let you down, Dad," she whispered. Fairview High looked more like a private college than a public school. Towering red brick buildings, expensive cars in the lot, and kids who dressed like they were heading to a fashion shoot. Ariel parked at the farthest spot, tucked behind lifted trucks and customized BMWs. As she stepped out, she felt the stares not because she was particularly flashy, but because she was new. And in a school like Fairview, new was a spectacle. And Logan Barrett noticed her first. He was impossible to miss, too, a square jaw, and the kind of charm that wasn't taught but inherited. His car, a candy-red Camaro, sat gleaming under the Texas sun. He lounged across the hood with his crew Trent, all muscle and zero wit, and Colby, the sharp-eyed snake, who smiled like a friend, but watched like a predator. "Fresh meat," Trent muttered, nodding toward Ariel. Logan smirked. "Dibs." Ariel didn't notice. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. She walked with purpose, steps deliberate, scanning her surroundings like her father had trained her. Always know your exits. Always trust your instincts. Her first few classes were uneventful. She sat in the middle row, neither eager nor defiant. She took notes, kept her head down, and said little. Ariel had learned the art of invisibility after bouncing between 3 schools in 2 years. But Fairview had a different rhythm, and invisibility wasn't part of the dance. Lunch was a battlefield. Every table in the cafeteria was claimed athletes in one corner, influencers near the windows, brainiacs by the vending machines. Ariel didn't belong to any of them. She grabbed a tray, found an empty table near the exit, and began eating in silence. But silence didn't last long. "Hey, beautiful Logan," said, sliding into the seat across from her, his voice loud enough to draw attention. "You've got eyes like trouble. I like trouble." Ariel looked up, her expression unreadable. "I really need to get to class," she said, pushing her tray aside. Logan leaned in. Class doesn't start for 20 minutes. Come on, I'm just being friendly. I said no. Excuse me. She stood to leave, and the cafeteria went still. Not silent, but that kind of hush where everyone leans in to see what's about to happen. Logan's hand hovered in her path, not touching, but blocking. No one walks away from me, he said quietly, eyes narrowing. But Ariel did. She stepped around him without another word. And that was the moment everything changed. She didn't just bruise Logan's ego, she shattered it. And he wasn't going to let that go quietly. Not in his school. Not without making her pay. By Tuesday, the retaliation had begun. Ariel arrived at her locker to find the word "stuck up" scrawled across it in dripping red spray paint. A crowd had already gathered, phones out, whispering, laughing, recording. Some students expected tears, a breakdown, maybe even a dramatic meltdown. But Ariel just pulled a pack of paper towels from her backpack and began wiping the paint away with slow, steady hands. No emotion, no reaction, just silence. Assistant Principal Dunn eventually showed up, glanced at the damage, and muttered, "Maintenance will handle that." "I've got it," Ariel replied firmly, never looking away from the stain. She knew who had done it. Logan stood across the hallway, arms crossed, watching with that same smugness he wore like cologne. But she also knew how power worked at Fairview High. Logan was untouchable. Quarterback, son of a major donor, protected by both silence and legacy. Wednesday. Her homework vanished from her backpack. Thursday, her chair in chemistry was coated in superglue. She caught it just in time, thanks to a whisper from a classmate who looked too afraid to meet her eyes. A fake Instagram page appeared in her name, filled with photoshopped images and captions painting her as arrogant and promiscuous. Still, Ariel didn't crack. She didn't lash out. She documented everything, every message, every incident, every smear. Her father had taught her well. Information is ammunition. Never shoot until you're ready to end it. But the worst came on Monday morning. Ariel and her mother walked out to find their car's tires slashed, a knife mark etched across the driver's side door. "Watch your back." The security cameras were mysteriously spray-painted. The neighbor's footage somehow glitched. The police came, shrugged, offered a standard report, and drove off. Her mother tried to smile at dinner that night, but her voice cracked. "I want to believe this is just kids being cruel," she said, hands shaking. "But I can't help thinking, they're targeting you." Ariel didn't respond. She just glanced at the black belt, now hanging on the back of her door. Then came Tuesday. She was riding the bush, her only way to school now, with Logan's lackeys Trent and Colby seated a few rows behind. The comments started low. Mean, personal. Heard her dad died crying like a punk. No wonder she don't know how to act, no man ever taught her respect. Bet we could teach her something. Ariel gripped the backpack in her lap. Breath slowing into deep, rhythmic pulls. Across the aisle, an elderly woman watched her quietly, then mouthed, "You okay?" Ariel gave a faint nod, though her knuckles stayed white. Not here, she thought. Not in front of witnesses. That's what they want. For her to explode, to get suspended, to become the angry girl with a temper. No, that wasn't her fight. Not yet. But when she got to her locker that day, she nearly lost control. Taped across it were old newspaper clippings, her father's obituary, the crash scene, a picture of the mangled car. Scrawled across one page, "Maybe you'll join Daddy soon." Her hands shook as she tore down the paper. She didn't cry, but her silence wasn't calm anymore. It was electric-charged with something that had been building far too long. That afternoon, Sarah Jefferson, a soft-spoken girl from English class, tapped Ariel's shoulder in the hallway. "Be careful," she whispered. "Logan has done this before. Freshman year. I said no to him. The school covered it up." She rolled up her sleeve, revealing thin scars that spoke louder than words. "I'm in therapy now." "But no one believed me." Ariel didn't reply. She didn't need to. That night, the punching bag in her garage shook under every strike she threw. And for the first time since she'd arrived at Fairview High, she wasn't just preparing to survive. She was preparing to end it. Thursday morning arrived under a heavy gray sky, clouds pressing low, like they knew something was coming. Ariel Brooks dressed with care, jeans, sneakers, and a white cotton dress simple, flowing the last gift her father had given her on her 16th birthday. It wasn't just a dress. It was armor stitched with memory. When she stepped onto campus, something felt off. The main hallway was unusually crowded for 7:45 a.m. Students lined both sides, whispering phones out screens glowing like fireflies. No teachers in sight, no administrators, just a wall of curious faces waiting. At the far end stood Logan Barrett, flanked by Trent and Colby, their stances wide, smug, territorial. "The princess finally shows up," Logan called out, voice amplified in the hush. Ariel kept walking, eyes forward, shoulders back. Calm. "What do you want, Logan?" she asked when she stopped 10 feet from him. "I want my life back. My scholarship, my respect, and I want you gone." "Then you're going to be disappointed," the crowd murmured. A ripple of energy buzzed through the students. Someone whispered, "She's got guts." Logan's face darkened. "You think you're tough? Think your daddy's karate makes you something special?" He stepped closer, too close. "Your daddy's dead, Ariel. What's he gonna do, come back and save you?" Ariel didn't flinch. "My father was a United States Marine. He saved lives. He died a hero." "Then where is he now?" Logan hissed. She turned to walk away. She almost made it past him, but his hand shot out. Fingers gripped her shoulder, spinning her around hard. She stumbled into the lockers, catching herself. But before she could move, he grabbed her collar. "Let's see what you're hiding under this good girl act," Logan sneered. And then rip. The sound was deafening. Her white dress tore from the shoulder to the waist, the fabric slicing apart in front of the entire student body. Gasps echoed. Phones focused. One girl screamed, but Ariel didn't cover herself. She didn't cry. She didn't run. Instead, her stance shifted. Her feet planted firmly on the tile. Her hands lifted, not to shield, but to fight. The hall went silent as the crowd noticed the calluses on her knuckles, the poise in her frame, the calm in her storm. She raised her voice, not loud but sharp enough to cut through the air. "My father taught me that violence is the last resort," she said. "But he also taught me that when someone won't stop pushing, you make sure they can't throw a second punch." Logan laughed, but there was fear in his eyes now. "What you gonna karate chop me?" She met his gaze. "No. I'm giving you one chance to walk away." He lunged. Time slowed. Ariel pivoted, left foot grounded, right arm arcing upward in a clean, practiced motion. The edge of her hand struck the side of his neck, precise, calculated, deadly accurate. Logan's eyes bulged, then rolled. He collapsed like a puppet whose strings had been cut, slamming to the floor in a thud that rang like justice. Trent charged. Colby followed. Ariel didn't hesitate. She ducked Trent's wild swing, gripped his arm, and flipped him clean over her hip into a water fountain that shattered on impact. Colby tried to grab her from behind. She elbowed his gut, swept his legs, and sent him sprawling beside his friends. 3 boys, 3 seconds, flat. Ariel stood in the center of the chaos, dress torn chest rising steady. The hallway held its breath. She turned slowly to the stunned crowd. "Anyone else?" Not a soul moved. And just then in the distance, sirens began to wail. Help was finally coming. But Ariel Brooks had already saved herself. By the time the sirens grew near, Ariel Brooks stood tall, surrounded by silence, not fear. The paramedics rushed in first, kneeling beside Logan Barrett and his 2 unconscious wingmen. The police followed next, hands resting on their holsters, eyes darting around the hallway, now thick with murmurs, whispers, and trembling hands holding phones full of evidence. Ariel raised her arms slowly, her voice steady. "I was defending myself. Check every phone, check every camera. I have 3 weeks of documentation, and I want to press charges." The statement hit the room like another explosion. Within minutes, Principal Hargrave arrived, out of breath, red-faced, and completely unprepared for what he walked into. Ariel was escorted to the office, a blanket placed over her shoulders. Her mother arrived soon after, eyes brimming with tears, clutching her daughter's hand tightly. But this wasn't a scene of sorrow. It was a turning point. Across the table sat Logan's parents. His father, Douglas Barrett, all bluster and expensive suits, and his mother, Cheryl, perfect makeup and a twisted look of outrage. With them was a lawyer who had clearly been on retainer for just this sort of moment. "This is assault," Douglas thundered. "My son was attacked in front of the entire school." Principal Hargrave shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Barrett, there are over 50 videos from different angles. They all show Logan initiating contact. She provoked him for weeks," Cheryl snapped. "She's been a disruption since she got here." That's when Ariel calmly reached into her backpack and pulled out a thick folder. She placed it on the desk with a quiet but solid thump. 3 weeks of harassment, photos, screenshots, vandalism reports, slashed tires, death threats taped to my locker. I documented everything. Principal Hargrave's face drained of color as he flipped through the folder. He paused at one page, looked up sharply, and then turned to the officers. "You want to read this?" But Ariel wasn't finished. "Sarah Jefferson is outside. So are Katie Linalea Dawson, Maya Thompson. They have folders too." One by one, the girls entered, each holding their own file of pain. Stories of silent abuse, threats, manipulation. Stories buried by fear and by the school itself. Soon, the Barretts paled. Douglas stood. "This is a witch hunt. You're destroying a young man's future." Ariel's mother stood with him, matching his volume, but not his tone. "Your son ripped the dress off my child in front of an entire school. He's been tormenting her for weeks, and you're worried about his future." When the dust settled, Logan was suspended indefinitely and later expelled. Within days, the videos went viral. Black girl destroys bully after dress torn, trended across every platform. Interviews poured in. Protests erupted. Justice for Ariel signs appeared around the district. Even the school board couldn't hide behind their silence anymore. An independent investigation was launched. Civil charges were filed. Ariel's folder became the foundation of a district-wide reform. But it wasn't just about punishing Logan. It was about changing everything. Girls who once walked with their eyes down now stood tall. A table appeared in the cafeteria, covered with handwritten signs, "You're not alone. We believe you. Speak." And at the center of it all was Ariel, no longer just the girl who fought back, but the girl who ended it. The following week, Fairview High felt like a different school. Logan's crew walked the halls like ghosts, heads down, eyes averted. The football team, once untouchable, now floundered without their star quarterback or their disgraced head coach, who had quietly resigned the day after the videos surfaced. But the real change wasn't just in the locker room or the principal's office, it was in the air. Girls walked taller. Conversations once whispered behind closed doors were now out in the open. A quiet revolution had begun, not led by faculty or administrators, but by students who refused to be silent any longer. The whispers that once fueled fear now carried power. In the center of it all was Ariel Brooks. At first, she tried to stay in the background, but the students wouldn't let her. Freshman girls approached her in the hallway, their eyes wide with something between awe and hope. "Is it true?" one asked, clutching a spiral notebook to her chest. "You're starting a self-defense class." Ariel blinked. She hadn't planned on it. But in that moment, as she looked at the small group forming around her, some girls, some boys, she saw a need, a hunger to feel safe, to feel strong. "Yes," she said simply. "Thursdays after school. Gym B. All are welcome." By that Thursday, Gym B was packed. More than 24 students showed up, some awkward, some nervous, all of them carrying stories in their silence. Ariel stood at the front in her GI, her father's black belt tied proudly around her waist. She didn't start with punches or kicks. She started with words. "My father taught me that violence is never the first answer," she said, her voice steady and clear. "But when the system fails you, when no one listens, when your dignity is threatened, you have every right to protect yourself." She taught them blocks first. defense before offense, how to break a grip, how to shout for help with authority, how to move with confidence. But more than physical skills, Ariel taught them to trust their instincts to say no, with power to stand tall even when scared. She watched as students who once shrunk in the shadows began to rise. Even some teachers joined in those who had watched from the sidelines too long. A counselor quietly thanked Ariel after class. A janitor left a note on her locker. "You changed more than you know." Outside the gym, the story spread. Other schools across Texas reached out. Messages flooded Ariel's phone girls from other cities, other states, asking how to start their own classes, how to find their voices. She responded to everyone. And then one day a package arrived on her doorstep. Inside was a neatly folded Marine Corps flag and a handwritten note. "Your father served with me in Afghanistan. I heard what you did. He would be proud. I'm saying what he would have said, Semper Fi Marine's daughter." Ariel clutched the flag to her chest, tears brimming not from grief, but from knowing she hadn't just honored her father. She had carried his legacy forward, into the future, into her community, into the hearts of girls who'd been told to stay quiet, and now they were rising with her. On the 1-year anniversary of the incident, Fairview High held an assembly, not for punishment, not for silence, but for acknowledgement. Ariel Brooks stepped onto the stage, not the girl with the torn dress anymore, but a young woman in full command of her voice, her purpose, and her legacy. The gym was packed. Survivors sat in the front row, teachers behind them, and students sold and new watched with reverence. "My name is Ariel," she began. "And I used to believe that if I stayed small enough, quiet enough, careful enough, trouble would pass me by. I was wrong." Her eyes swept the crowd. "Predators don't choose you based on how loud or soft you are. They choose who they think won't fight back." She paused, then said with unwavering strength, "They chose wrong." The applause was thunderous, but it wasn't the clapping that mattered most. It was the silence between it, the respect, the shift. That night, Ariel taught another class, and afterward, as she folded her GI and placed her father's flag in its case, her phone lit up another school, another girl, another voice ready to rise. Sometimes we don't realize our strength until silence becomes unbearable. Standing up for yourself isn't just an act of courage, it's a gift to everyone who's still afraid to speak. Whether you've been silent, scared, or just surviving, know this, you are never alone. If Ariel's story moved you, leave a comment below. Share your thoughts or your story, your voice matters. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story that empowers, uplifts, and unites.